The Handkerchief by Great 78. Chapter 108. Fathers, Fables, and Fortunes. After leaving his father to his own misery in the library, Draco hurried up the main staircase to his suite. Fuck, that was close, he thought, warding the doors to his bedroom. He performed a hominium revelio this time to ensure that he was alone, before opening the handkerchief again. "Hermione, please, I need you to answer me. Are you all right? I'm not going to message again for a while, but please, answer as soon as you can." An hour later, blessedly, the handkerchief warmed. "Cave in minicum. Didn't I say it was in a rumpet horn? Didn't I tell him? And now his house has been blown apart." There was a short pause, then new words appeared. "Oh, I hope they don't kill him. That's why I wanted the Death Eaters to get a glimpse of Harry before we left, so they knew Xenophilius hadn't been lying." She was doing the thing where she spoke to them in order to let him know that she was all right again. Draco let out a huge sigh of relief. Luna's father had evidently lost his house, but Hermione, and presumably the others, were safe, if she was doing the protective spells. He waited only a moment for more. "You're supposed to be in bed with Spattergroit, Ron. They've kidnapped Luna because her father supported Harry. What would happen to your family if they knew that you were with him?" "Then they're in Australia. They should be all right. They don't know anything." Draco touched the words gently. He knew how much it hurt her to say those things. After a moment, another message. "What about Luna?" A slight pause, then, "Don't say that! Don't say that! She must be alive! She must!" A longer pause, then more words appeared. "I hope you're right. I'd feel so sorry for Xenophilius if... yeah." About 3 minutes passed, and Draco thought they might be setting up the tent, assuming that they still had her beaded bag. Then her words confirmed it. "We are setting up the tent. Like you said, Xeno had turned. He tried to call the Death Eaters by saying the name. Luna is imprisoned. We don't know if she's safe." He wrote back to her. "She is safe. I found her here on Christmas Day. She promised me not to tell you that she was here. She didn't want you and your friends to worry. My mother and I and the elves are taking care of her. She is protected, I promise." There was a bit of dampness to the cloth. She was crying, he knew. Then her message appeared. "I wish I had known." He responded quickly. "I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you immediately, but she asked me not to. She was worried that the three of you would try to break her out. She's still worried that Blaze might try. I am too, if it were you imprisoned." But he could not finish the sentence aloud. After a moment he cleared his throat and asked her, "So, you think he was arrested?" "I hope he was only arrested. I did what I could. I made sure that they knew that Harry and I were there, so it wasn't just a false alarm. But I covered up Ron." "That was quick thinking. I'm sorry it was such a bust." She answered, "I am too. What he told us was so ridiculous. Such a far-fetched idea. I don't know if he made it up on the spot or if he truly believes all the things that he told us, but the idea is silly, really." Draco was a bit intrigued. He asked, "What did he tell you?" "He called the symbol the Deathly Hallows. He said that the line, the circle, and the triangle all stand for the 3 gifts from death given to the 3 brothers in the Beetle book. The line is the wand of Elder, the circle is the stone, and the triangle is the invisibility cloak. But the whole idea is simply ridiculous." Draco sat and thought about it. Contrary to what Hermione thought, it didn't sound entirely implausible. Beetle's stories were often based upon real events that had happened long ago, As a muggle-born, she might not know or believe that. I don't know, it's possible. For instance, I've seen other invisibility cloaks, but the way that the one from the book is described, that cloak is very special, kind of like Potter's. There was a long wait until her message came. You think this might be real? I don't know. There's nothing that can really bring back the dead, but even in the story, the witch that comes back isn't really alive. No! No! There is no such thing as the resurrection stone. End of. A small smile played upon his lips. Draco entirely understood her fear of death and the dead, as he felt it as well. He wrote back, well, wands of Elder, they're supposed to be extremely powerful, but bad luck. Maybe they're only bad luck because everyone knows the story. Draco considered this. That's possible, I suppose. But if so, it's pretty pervasive. I remember my father talking about how Abraxas tried to use some ancestor's Elder wand once on a dare. He was young, maybe 14 or so at the time. Abraxas fell off of a bewitched broom and was knocked out for days. They worried he was going to die. She replied quickly, that was likely entirely coincidence. It's possible, although, from what I've always heard and even remember a bit, Abraxas was an incredibly gifted flyer. Supposedly that was the only time he ever fell from a broom. Well, bully for him. Draco snorted in laughter, then sobered. V is searching for a wand, you know. There was a long pause, and then she responded. Yes, I realize that. But we can't get distracted by that. Dumbledore left us different things to hunt. Let him hunt this wand. This was his chance, his opening to talk about Horcruxes. Hermione, about that, I know you told me that you can't say much about what you're looking for, or why you're looking for them, but I may have figured it out. Not what the items are, but why they are important. Do you recall last year I told you I was researching Riddle before I was marked? She responded simply, I do remember. He went on. That book had a section about prolonging life. It mentioned the Philosopher's Stone and unicorn blood, but there was something else mentioned briefly. At the time, it didn't seem important because I'd not witnessed anything like that, but I knew about the stone, and I'd seen the unicorn blood thing. What did the book say? He told her. When he was done, there was a very long wait until she responded. Yes, that is what we've been searching for. Professor Dumbledore thought there were 7 of them, with you-know-who being one of them. Draco, I know that you know this, but you cannot tell anyone. Not your mother, not Professor Snape. No one outside of the 4 of us know about this. Well, I guess except him. Draco held his breath. He knew that he was not intended to have this knowledge, but he knew he would do everything he could to keep it safe. I understand. If there's ever anything I can do, I would like to help if you need it. Thank you. I love you. I love you too, Mai. Too soon, the new year had begun, and it was time to return to Hogwarts. He had gone to visit Luna every day, making sure that she was safe. Luna had relayed a message from Blaise verbatim that said, Your family is a bunch of wakers, and I fucking hate them. But she says your mum is nice and helpful, so I'm not storming the manor yet. Being back in the castle was tedious. Most of the classes now were focused on defense. McGonagall and Flitwick, and even Sprout and Slughorn had taken up the slack, where Amicus was content to torture. Grades did not seem important to the professors. Homework was practically non-existent, as the professors wished to keep the students in their common rooms in the evening, rather than wandering the corridors between the houses and the library. Draco's Protego Proculus spell worked fairly well, so long as the victim wasn't touched, and wasn't having an unforgivable performed upon them. He was able to teach it to a few other students from the other houses, as well as a handful of Slytherins who found the practice of torture distasteful. Urquhart, Violetta, and Daphne all learned the spell gladly, and swore they would keep its use private. Theo and Blaise were mostly responsible for teaching a handful of Hufflepuffs and Ravenclaws, particularly the ones who had been in Dumbledore's army. Draco taught it to Neville and Ginny, who taught it to nearly every Gryffindor. Theo and Blaise, much like him, were finding the Slytherin common rooms repugnant these days. Amicus and Electo had taken to joining the Slytherins in their common room most evenings. Students like Vince and Greg welcomed them. It was not unusual to walk through the common room in the evenings and spy Harper on his hands and knees, a leash fixed around his neck, at the feet of Electo. In late January, the first time Draco saw it, he nearly threw up his dinner. Harper made eye contact with him, and the look upon the boy's face struck Draco deeply. It reminded him of a look his father had given him many years before, at some gala or other. Lucius had been dancing with Maribel Bulstrode, who had been wearing tight orange dress robes. His look had told Draco, "When we must, we must." Stiff upper lip. It was the same grimace on Harper's face, but the haunting look in the young man's eyes made Draco's bollocks contract. He had to get out of here. He turned on his heel and began to climb. All the sodding staircases, he thought, and no princess at the top of the tower that he could rescue. He shook his head ruefully at the thought. Reaching the room of requirement, he strode in front of the tapestry with the dancing trolls 3 times. I need a peaceful place. A place filled with comfort. A place I can be myself for just a little while. The door appeared, and Draco opened it, gratefully. It was all there. The low sofa, the warm rug in front of the roaring fire. It was just as he remembered it. He was a few steps inside the door, when the faint hint of cooking sherry reached his nostrils. Oh, fuck. The bathroom door creaked open, and the faint jingle of necklaces and bangles reached his ears. He tried to back slowly out towards the door, but was tripped by a low ottoman. That had never been here before. Professor Sybil Trelawney looked up in shock. "Oh, my dear boy! I wasn't expecting company." "Nor was I, Professor. I will leave you alone. I apologize for my intrusion." Draco gathered himself and moved to the door. As a 7th year, his divination class was being taught by Professor Firenze, the centaur. His classroom, with its peaceful twilight forest setting, had become synonymous with the best rest a student could get in the castle, bar none. No, my dear. I apologize. Please, sit. This year has been rather lonely. I only have a few classes to teach. Half of the time, the students do not even show up. I fear it is the goings-on in the castle." The thin witch drew her shawls closer about her shoulders, as though warding off a chill. She stepped closer to the fire, and warmed her hands. Draco stifled a small sigh. He had once sworn that he would never share this room with this particular witch again, and yet here he was. He sat at the far end of the sofa, wishing he had something to occupy his hands with. A child's wooden puzzle appeared on the arm of the sofa next to him. He chuckled a bit and picked it up. I meant fire whiskey, he thought, but the arm of the sofa remained wilfully empty. You remember that that's one of the principal exceptions to Gamp's law of elemental transfiguration. No food. It's not food if I can't chew it, he grumbled mentally, to no one in particular. Fine. How about a drinking glass, then? A smooth, heavy-bottomed drinking glass, the kind you might enjoy fire whiskey in. appeared on the arm of the sofa. He filled it with water from his wand and huffed out a sigh. "Yes," Draco said, in answer to Professor Trelawney's earlier comment, as the witch in question turned to warm her backside. "The atmosphere in the castle is rather dire right now. But why aren't you simply in your classroom? You have your poufs and tables and teacups and your scented fire there. Isn't that the kind of place you would rather be?" He had asked for a room of comfort, of peace. If she was in there, and the door had opened for him, it meant that she had asked for the same. Wasn't her classroom such a place for her? "Ah, alas, some days the smells get to me. All that frankincense, the patchouli, the sage, it messes with my sinuses." Trelawney moved to the other end of the sofa and sat. Her ethereal sage voice gave all of this a particularly funny tone, and Draco struggled not to laugh. "I can understand that," he said simply. He had had his own share of sinus discomfort in this castle over the years. "I sometimes find it's nice to have a bit of calmness amongst all the chaos." "I'm glad we have a chance to talk openly. I wanted to tell you last year that the thing that you were going to attempt, you would not be successful with it. Alas, I fear that if I had told you, perhaps you would have tried harder. So, I'm glad that I did not." The older witch smiled a bit lopsided, and now that Draco was within 5 feet of her, he could smell the cooking sherry more strongly. Draco gave her a thin smile. It did not take a seer to figure that out, he thought. Moaning Myrtle was an unobservant 14-year-old ghost, and still came to that conclusion. "Yes, well, you were right," Draco offered. He took a big swig of his glass's contents, still wishing it was fire whiskey. "Nope, still water." "I cannot believe that ridiculous Snape has taken over as headmaster. I suppose at least he'd let me keep my post here. You know, he was hired around the same time I was, and somehow he moved up the ranks before me." Draco was confused. Was Professor Trelawney saying that she wished she were headmaster? What an odd witch. "You would have thought, would you not, after the way he was caught listening in on my interview with Dumbledore all those years ago, that he would have been tossed onto the streets?" Draco paid closer attention now. This was the prophecy she was talking about, Draco was sure. Hermione had said that Professor Snape was the one who had overheard it, and Professor Snape had told a portion of it to Lord Voldemort. Voldemort had chosen Potter based on this partial prophecy, and soon after, Snape had a job and, presumably, the loyalty of Dumbledore. It still rankled Draco. What had made Dumbledore change his mind? But Professor Trelawney had no more to say on the subject. Instead, reaching down to the ground next to her for the large carafe of cooking sherry that she had clearly brought in with her, knowing the room's limitations. She took a large, loud, indulgent swig, smacking her lips appreciatively when she was done. Draco held his empty water-glass in front of him pointedly, sliding his eyes sideways at the now half-empty carafe. But after a moment it became obvious that the only thing that Sybil Trelawney was interested in sharing was her companionship, and her words. After a few moments' silence, Draco made as if to stand. "Well, Professor, I should go. Curfew is—" But his sentence was cut off as he turned to look at her. Trelawney had gone rigid. Eyes rolled back in her face. Hands stuck out in front of her as though to fight off what her eyes could see in her mind. Then she opened her mouth and spoke in a deep, guttural voice, nothing like the wispy, clairvoyant tones she usually used. "The final master of death returns. He who completes the quest unknowingly. The battle commences as the 5th month is born, and sides will be chosen. Many will suffer. Many will die. One phoenix core is broken, the other abandoned, but it matters not in the end, for the true master of the wand will be disarmed, and it is his wand that shall prevail." Draco stared at her in shock. Merlin's ghost, what the fuck was that? Was that an actual prophecy? He thought to himself. I wish I thought to write it down, he whispered to himself. On the cushion of the sofa next to him, an exact transcript of the prophecy appeared on a scrap of parchment. Courtesy of the room. Trelawney had returned to her usual self and was clearing her throat as though it was scratchy. She took another large squig from the carafe and gargled with it, spitting a bit back into the carafe before she swallowed. Draco was suddenly very glad that she hadn't offered any. "Sorry, dear boy. I was daydreaming for a moment. What did you say?" Trelawney asked. "I was just saying that curfew will begin soon. I need to get back to my dormitory," Draco said dazedly. Of course. Feel free to come back any time, Draco. This year has been lonely. Ordinarily I have such wonderful objects to study, but this year has been decidedly mundane." Not so mundane any more, Draco thought to himself, as he left with a parchment firmly tucked in his pocket. Thank you for listening to this chapter of The Handkerchief by Great78.